At 7:18 a.m. local time, the Caribbean Sea is unusually calm in the way experienced sailors notice right away. The water is flat, the wind is light, and visibility stretches well past 10 nautical miles. For a U.S. Navy carrier strike group, these are nearly perfect conditions. Nothing is concealed, nothing feels unstable, and there is no obvious reason for concern until the radar picture begins to shift. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, the routine quiet is broken by a radar operator. Contact bearing 2110. Multiple surface returns. Not one contact, not two. 5 appear almost at once, moving in a coordinated pattern that clearly stands apart from normal maritime traffic. Initial range, 21 nautical miles. Speed constant. Course converging directly across the strike group's planned route. Nobody laughs it off. Nobody asks the operator to repeat it. Civilian vessels do not move like this. On the bridge, the captain of USS George Washington studies the tactical display without changing posture. The carrier, more than 100,000 tons of steel, keeps its course and speed. No turn, no burst of speed, no early maneuver. In U.S. Navy practice, changing course too soon can send the wrong message. It can suggest hesitation. Automated classification systems begin working through the returns. Hull shape, superstructure profile, radar cross-section. The result comes quickly. Venezuelan Navy, 5 warships, mixed formation. The distance drops to 16 nautical miles. The surface warfare officer reports in a calm, even tone. The formation suggests a deliberate intercept. This is not a parallel shadow, not a distant escort. It is a blocking move, one meant to cross the bow, limit freedom of movement, and force a reaction without a single shot being fired. A message delivered through positioning rather than open confrontation. USS George Washington sends its first hail over the international bridge-to-bridge frequency. Unidentified Venezuelan naval vessels, this is a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. State your intentions. No answer comes back, no static, no weak transmission, only silence. Range, 12 nautical miles. Electronic support measures come alive across the strike group. Venezuelan search radars are now clearly active. Every emission is detected, analyzed, and logged. Frequencies, pulse patterns, power levels, each one time-stamped and stored. Inside the CIC, the tension sharpens, not into panic, but into focus. This is exactly the kind of moment crews rehearse again and again. A situation where every movement is tracked and every decision may carry consequences far beyond the horizon. A junior officer speaks quietly. Recommend course adjustment. The answer comes immediately. Negative. Maintain heading. USS. George Washington continues straight ahead. Not out of stubbornness, but out of doctrine. International law, rules of engagement, and tactical advantage all support holding the line. Changing course now would not lower the risk, it would change the meaning of the encounter. Through long-range optics, the 5 Venezuelan ships are now visible. Gray hulls, low silhouettes, older platforms, but moving with unmistakable purpose. This is no navigational misunderstanding. They are testing response time, testing restraint, testing whether a U.S. carrier will give ground under pressure. Range, 8 nautical miles. No weapons are manned. No alarms sound. Flight operations remain secured below deck. On the surface, everything still looks controlled. Beneath that calm, every system is fully alert. USS George Washington does not answer with noise or dramatic movement. It answers with awareness. Every change in bearing, every radar sweep, every second of silence is being recorded. The carrier does not need to maneuver to show control. Its presence already says enough. Then, quietly and without any drama, a brief internal order moves through the ship. Log everything. Shift to condition monitoring. From that moment on, the situation is no longer routine. It becomes a record. And at sea, records matter. The range continues to close. 8 nautical miles becomes 7, then 6. The Venezuelan formation tightens, each vessel adjusting course in small, precise increments. No abrupt turns, no erratic motion. This is controlled navigation with clear intent. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George Washington, the tactical plot updates in real time. 5 surface contacts, now firmly identified as Venezuelan naval vessels, are maneuvering to bracket the carrier's projected path. 2 ships move slightly ahead of the group. 3 remain offset, spreading wider across the water. It is a classic blocking pattern. From a distance, it still looks almost peaceful. 5 gray hulls slicing through blue water. No smoke, no visible weapons trained. But at sea, geometry tells the story. And this geometry is impossible to ignore. The Venezuelan ships are not trying to escort. They are not simply shadowing from afar. They are positioning to deny space. At 5 nautical miles, their intention is no longer in doubt. A second hail is transmitted, firm and measured. Venezuelan naval vessels, you are approaching a United States Navy carrier operating in international waters. maintain safe distance, and alter course immediately. Once again, there is no reply. What does change is their speed. Two of the Venezuelan ships increase throttle, gaining several knots on the others. The formation compresses. The intercept angle sharpens. Their bows now point slightly across the carrier's starboard side, reducing the room available to maneuver. In U.S. Navy terms, this is tactical pressure, a method smaller forces use to compel acknowledgement from a larger one. The goal is not impact. The goal is reaction. On the bridge of USS George Washington, the watch team remains composed. Helm orders stay the same. The carrier holds its course, leaving a straight white wake behind it. The reasoning is simple. A ship with greater awareness does not surrender space without cause. Below deck, the strike group's sensors are fully engaged. Electronic warfare teams track every signal. Surface warfare officers record every maneuver. Nothing is judged on its own. Every movement is read as part of a larger pattern. The Venezuelan ships begin sweeping their radars more aggressively. The spikes in energy are unmistakable. This is not passive navigation. They are actively building a surface picture, and they are being observed every second. Inside the CIC, a brief exchange cuts through the controlled silence. Closest point of approach projected. CPA under 1 nautical mile, if present courses are maintained. If you want, I can keep going in the same style and rewrite the next part too. That distance is close enough to draw attention, close enough to trigger speculation, close enough to test discipline on both sides, and yet no alarms sound. The carrier does not break course. Instead, the logging continues. At 4 nautical miles, the visual picture becomes much clearer. Deck crews can now be seen on the Venezuelan ships, helmets, movement near the forward sections. Nothing openly hostile, but nothing casual either. This is not confusion, it is a signal. For Venezuela, the calculation is as political as it is tactical. A direct clash with a U.S. carrier would be dangerously unwise. But creating friction, drawing international attention, and pushing Washington into a visible response, that has value. For the U.S. Navy, the logic runs in the opposite direction. Every unnecessary move carries the risk of escalation. Every aggressive signal can be misunderstood. Control is not maintained through dramatic displays of strength, but through discipline. The carrier's presence already shapes the entire situation. At 3 nautical miles, one Venezuelan ship edges slightly ahead of the group. It is now clearly attempting to pass across the carrier's bow. The maneuver is slow, deliberate, and impossible to mistake. Inside the CIC, the voices remain even. Contact altering course. Intent remains consistent with bow crossing. Roger. Continue to monitor. There is no urgency in the reply because urgency in moments like this can spread fast. Above deck, the sea is still calm. From a distance, it could look like nothing more than ships moving through open water. But beneath that calm surface, every second is being recorded, every action preserved. The Venezuelan ships continue to apply pressure. The U.S. Navy does not react. And that imbalance, pressure meeting silence, is beginning to define the encounter. Because at sea, the side that forces movement is not always the side in control. Quite often, control belongs to the side that refuses to move at all. As the gap keeps narrowing, the most striking thing aboard USS George Washington is what never happens. No alarms, no abrupt course changes, no raised voices on the bridge. The carrier remains steady, its bow cutting cleanly through the calm Caribbean, engines holding a constant rhythm. To an untrained observer, that might look passive. To anyone who understands U.S. Navy operations, it looks like something else entirely. It looks like control. Inside the Combat Information Center, the picture is complete. Every Venezuelan vessel is tracked with precision, bearing, speed, rate of turn, sensor activity. Nothing is left to guesswork. The strike group's awareness stretches far beyond the visible horizon, fed by satellites, passive sensors, and network systems working quietly in the background. This is how the Navy prefers to operate, without spectacle. A report moves across the consoles. Air picture clean, no fast movers, no rotary wing launch detected. That matters because the lack of air activity tells its own story. Venezuela is applying pressure, but carefully, close enough to provoke. Not close enough to justify a stronger response. On the flight deck, nothing appears unusual. Aircraft remain secured below. Crews continue normal movement. Nothing is staged for effect. But below deck, readiness has shifted. The carrier's escorts, destroyers, and cruisers supporting the formation are fully synchronized. Their sensors feed into a common picture, creating overlapping coverage from multiple angles around the Venezuelan ships. Every vessel in the strike group sees the same scene at the same moment. There are no blind spots. Electronic warfare teams quietly catalog Venezuelan radar emissions, pulse repetition, sweep timing, power changes, modulation patterns. What Venezuela sees as pressure is, in reality, exposure. Every second they transmit, they reveal more than they gain. The carrier's escorts, destroyers, and cruisers support the formation are fully synchronized. Their sensors feed into a common picture, creating overlapping coverage from multiple angles around the Venezuelan ships. Every vessel in the strike group sees the same scene at the same moment. There are no blind spots. Electronic warfare teams quietly catalog Venezuelan radar emissions, pulse repetition, sweep timing, power changes, modulation patterns. What Venezuela sees as pressure is, in reality, exposure. Every second they transmit, they reveal more than they gain. On the bridge, the captain listens as fresh updates come in. Closest point of approach projections are refined. The margin is narrow, but still manageable. No order is given to maneuver. In the U.S. Navy, movement is a signal, and signals are never sent by accident. A junior watch officer notes it calmly. No change in their posture, still holding intercept geometry. The answer is just as measured. Understood. Continue to log. The Venezuelan ships are now within 3 nautical miles. Close enough for visual identification without optics. Close enough that poor judgment could matter. Still, the carrier does not alter course. This is not stubbornness. It is doctrine. By holding a steady line, USS George Washington removes ambiguity. From this point forward, any unsafe maneuver belongs entirely to the opposing force. Responsibility becomes clear, recorded, and verifiable. Above the waterline, the scene still appears uneventful. 5 ships, 1 carrier, open sea. Below that surface, the reality is very different. The carrier systems are fully active in layers, defensive, informational, analytical. Not because conflict is expected, but because readiness is never optional. The Navy does not heighten tension in order to prepare. It prepares so that tension does not have to rise further. A quiet confirmation reaches the CIC. External ISR platforms available on short notice. No one says more. No one needs to. The meaning is simple. Options exist, and options matter. The Venezuelan formation hesitates, not enough to call it withdrawal, but enough to register. Speed shifts slightly. Courses are adjusted again as if searching for a reaction that never comes. They are pressing against silence, and at sea, silence can be unsettling. It offers no feedback, no emotional cue, nothing easy to read. It forces the other side to make the next move without knowing how that move will be received. Few understand that better than the U.S. Navy. The carrier continues ahead. Water parts cleanly at the bow. The wake remains unchanged. Every radar sweep, every course change, every second of the encounter is being captured. Not for attention, not for threats, but for the record. And in that record, one fact is becoming harder to ignore. The side applying pressure is not the side defining the terms. The side that remains steady is. The turning point does not arrive with noise. There is no alarm, no raised voice, no sudden maneuver. From the outside, nothing seems to change. The carrier stays on course. The sea remains calm. The Venezuelan ships continue forward at a measured pace. But inside the strike group, a quiet shift takes place. A single decision is made. Not to intensify, not to threaten, but to make the situation unmistakably clear. Inside the Combat Information Center, aboard USS George Washington, the order is brief and deliberate. Authorize airborne presence. There is no urgency in the tone, no emphasis, just intent. Minutes later, the stillness on the flight deck begins to break, not through chaos, but through precision. An MH-60R Seahawk is brought topside. Its rotor blades begin to turn, slowly at first, then faster, slicing smooth circles through the morning air. Deck crews move with practiced efficiency, calm-faced and exact in every motion. This is not a scramble, it is a statement. The helicopter lifts cleanly from the deck, climbing just enough to clear the carrier's superstructure before banking outward. It does not rush ahead. It does not circle in an aggressive pattern. It moves toward the Venezuelan formation at a controlled altitude, fully within established safety limits. Inside the Seahawk, the sensors come alive. Forward-looking infrared, high-resolution optics, laser designation, non-lethal, precise, unmistakable. Every system is aligned, every feed is live. From the Venezuelan ships, the helicopter is impossible to miss. A U.S. Navy aircraft, low and steady, approaching from the carrier's starboard side. No visible weapons display, no aggressive movement, just presence. At 2 nautical miles, the Seahawk levels off. It does not cut across the bow. It does not rush the decks. It simply holds position. Then a narrow green beam flickers on. Brief, controlled, deliberate. The laser rests for a moment on the bridge of the lead Venezuelan vessel. Not a threat, a marker. You are seen. The radio call follows, calm and unmistakable. Venezuelan naval vessel. This is a United States Navy aircraft. You are conducting unsafe maneuvers in international waters. Your actions are being recorded. Alter course immediately. The message is then repeated in Spanish. For the first time since initial contact, something changes. On the lead Venezuelan ship, movement becomes visible on the bridge. Figures step forward, binoculars come up, the bow wake begins to shorten. Speed drops by a knot, then another. Across the formation, the effect spreads. One ship drifts slightly off its intercept line. Another adjusts its heading just enough to open the distance. No sharp turn, no sudden withdrawal. But the geometry changes. Inside the CIC, updates move across the room in quiet voices. Lead contact reducing speed. Formation cohesion degrading. CPA increasing. The Seahawk maintains its position, flying a steady orbit. Sensors remain fixed. The imagery is exceptionally clear. Hull numbers, deck layout, crew positions, every detail captured, time-stamped, and stored. This is not intimidation. It is documentation made visible. The helicopter does not stay any longer than it has to. After one final pass, wide, deliberate, impossible to miss, it banks away, climbs, and heads back toward the carrier. Behind it, the Venezuelan ships stop pressing. Their bows no longer angle across the carrier's path. Their formation begins to loosen, the pressure fading in small, measured steps that leave no doubt about what has changed. Back aboard USS George Washington, there is no celebration and no running commentary. The carrier never altered course, never increased speed, never outwardly acknowledged the shift because the result was never about forcing anyone back. It was about defining the boundary. That message required no weapons, no collision, and no escalation. It only required a clear demonstration that the situation was understood, recorded, and firmly under control. As the Seahawk touches down on the flight deck and its rotors begin to slow, the Venezuelan formation continues to drift away. Still visible, still present, but no longer in any position to block the carrier's movement. The moment passes as quietly as it began, but from that point on, the encounter is no longer in question. It has already been settled. When the distance starts to open, it happens without announcement. The Venezuelan ships do not break away all at once. There is no abrupt reversal, no dramatic end to contact. Instead, the separation grows gradually, half a nautical mile, then another. Their courses shift just enough to remove the pressure without making the retreat look obvious. That detail says a great deal. Inside the Combat Information Center, aboard USS George Washington, the tactical plot reflects what everyone already understands. The situation has moved from confrontation to observation. The risk of collision has eased. The geometry no longer supports a blocking move. The carrier holds its course because there is no reason to do anything else. The Seahawk is secured on deck. Its sensors are powered down. The data, however, remains. Every radar emission, every maneuver, every stretch of silence, every moment of hesitation has been logged. Not condensed, not speculated on, but preserved exactly as it happened. This is how the U.S. Navy closes an encounter, by completing the record. From a distance, the outcome might seem uneventful. No shots fired, no intensified warnings, no visible show of force beyond a single helicopter. But outcomes at sea are not measured by explosions. They are measured by control of space, control of narrative, and control of risk. By that standard, the result is unmistakable. Venezuela applied pressure in order to provoke a reaction. The United States answered with discipline that removed any uncertainty. The Venezuelan ships gained visibility for a brief moment. In return, they gave away something far more valuable: their operating patterns, their command behavior, their tolerance for risk, and their response to restrained pressure. They revealed exactly how far they were prepared to go and exactly where they would stop. For the U.S. Navy, that kind of information matters far more than any headline. As the distance widens beyond 5 nautical miles, the Venezuelan formation settles onto a parallel course, still present, still being watched, but no longer relevant to the carrier's movement. No more hails are exchanged. None are needed. The carrier strike group continues along its planned route. Operations remain uninterrupted. Air wing schedules do not change. Escorts maintain a normal posture. The sea returns to the same quiet rhythm it held before the first radar contact ever appeared. But an encounter like this does not truly end when ships separate. It ends when analysis begins. Later, far from the Caribbean, analysts will review the data. Patterns will be compared, assumptions will be tested, future encounters will be refined by what was learned here. That process is constant, methodical, and largely invisible to those who expect power to announce itself with noise. This is the reality of modern naval power. Strength is not proven by who fires first. It is proven by who never has to. USS George Washington did not maneuver to prove dominance. It did not escalate to prove credibility. It simply held its line, applied presence, and let professionalism carry the moment. The Venezuelan ships challenged a carrier strike group and discovered something fundamental. They were never confronting a single ship. They were confronting a system, one designed to observe, decide, and control without haste. As the final range markers continue to climb and the contacts fade from immediate concern, the bridge watch rotates, the logs are signed, and the carrier moves on, outwardly no different from any other day at sea. That is not chance. That is doctrine. Because when an encounter ends quietly, without force, without concession, and without uncertainty, it means control was never truly in doubt. And in international waters, that is the outcome that matters most.